All right, I will now call this meeting of the Senate Public Safety and Security Committee to order. Will the secretary please take the roll?
Senator Flores,
Present.
Senator Orenshaw, Senator Pizzina, Senator Hansen, Senator Krasner, Senator Ellison, Chair Scheibel.
And I am here. We have one bill on our agenda today that is posted on Nellis. We also have a proposed conceptual amendment to the bill that is also available on Nellis, and there should be copies in the back of the room here in Carson City if you need them. As always, we will start with the bill presentation, then we will take testimony in support, opposition, and neutral. We'll have testimony here in person in Carson City, in person in Las Vegas, and on the phones. So without further ado, I would like to welcome our colleague, Senator Neal, to the Committee on Public Safety and Security to begin the hearing on SB 6 whenever you are ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am Senator Dina Neal. I'm here and I represent Senate District 4. I want to set the stage for this conversation on why we're talking about the Windsor Park Environmental Justice Act and then seeking to amend language from 2023. I will also have co-presenters that will come up from the Housing Division, the Administrator, Acroft, and Christine Hess, after I show this clip. Is the sound on? Can you guys hear that? I can't really hear that. Let's all the way up. Are you calling them back? Yeah. All right. We have, there's, the audio folks came in and did check it because I was in here when they were in here. But so we'll just go ahead and start and then I'll figure out if we can play that towards the end. So I will call the co-presenters up here and so we will go through the bill. Just to try to give framework on, I started this process in 2019 in order to work with the families that lived in Windsor Park. And it has been a 5-year journey of trying to make sure that these families were actually going to get justice. So when we started this project, we had hope that we would be able to move forward and with the $37 million that we had for these families, but we weren't able to, there were a lot of unseen costs and unseen things that came about. And so this particular revision of the bill is to deal with some of the issues that came up while we, after the bill passed on July 1st of 2023. So I just want to put some things into perspective. So we had families who lived in Windsor Park. So we have a mixture of Latino and African American families. We have original residents that are African American that moved into the homes. And after we passed the bill on July 1st, 2023, we found out a couple of things, right? So there's a portion in this bill that deals with the eligibility of residents. And the reason why I want to highlight this is because we actually had, her name was LaQuania Saunier, who purchased a home in Windsor Park. She did not know the history of the house. She received down payment assistance from the city of North Las Vegas in order to then purchase this house for $200,000 in 2021. When I realized that the problem was larger than just the originals, it was deeper than, folks that are, had lived there since 1965, but there were folks who were being sold these homes even after there was an ordinance in I believe it was 1997, that prevented them from repairing their homes, from building brick walls, which is how I got into this fight. And then we had a series of families who may have died intestate. We had families who their parents passed away and then passed the house down, but we needed to try to figure out how are we going to make these families eligible. And I thought when I passed SB 450 that my legislative intent would receive the deference to be able to go in and fix those issues. And I found out that I could not do that, and that I needed to be able to go back and spell out the issues and prescribe what I wanted to do so that folks could see the language in black and white, so I could move forward with trying to provide a remedy for these 93 families. And so it was super, super important that to bring back this bill, even though folks saw SB 393 in this past legislative session that died for failure to have a concurrence, this is a way to try to fix what SB 450 was doing and get another bite at the apple. So I wanted to just set that stage. And so with that, what we're going to do is walk through the bill, and then we're going to walk through the amendments kind of simultaneously so you can understand exactly what we're doing and why we're doing it. So with Section 1, and this was just pointed out that this is also an error that will need to be fixed. So in Section 1, this deals with, we were trying to establish a criteria here, but we are striking out Section 1. The Section 1, which is Section 9.5 in the blue language, the correction to the current amendment that you have is that we're actually only striking Sections A through G. We are not striking sub 2, which says that the housing division should come and report at least quarterly. That is an error. So I want you guys to make note of that, because sub 2 is important because we have been consistently having since 2023 an informal presentation from the housing division. In Section 2, which is not a part of your conceptual amendment, in SB 450, we had excluded certain streets from the definition. At the time, our legal counsel said because in the public policy statement, it dealt with the entirety of the neighborhood, that we could still move forward in trying to address the Windsor Park families because it had included, it said, the entire neighborhood of Windsor Park. This is correcting that the streets that were excluded, because there are actually residents that live in those streets, to try to make it a complete neighborhood area that is being defined to further implement the bill. Then in Section 3, we have changes to the date of December. It adds the December 31st, 2023, a single family residence that was owned as of December 31st, 2023. And then I will get into the Section 3 sub B. But the reason why the July 1st was struck out from SB 450 is because in December, like I think it was December 23rd of 2023, there was another person working at the housing division. A investor had owned a property and then sold the property to a family. That family, the house was counted in the 93. However, because it was no longer an investor and it was a family who purchased the house, not knowing the history of the sinking homes, I wanted to include that family who had purchased the home, who was unaware that they had potentially purchased a house that was not sound. And so December 31st, 2023 was inserted into this because I was trying to capture a particular family that had purchased the home. Now, in the amendment, you have Section 3, subsection 2B, 6. And this language, if the Housing Division would like to explain the broadening for the eligibility.
Thank you, Senator Neal. For Steve Acroft, Administrator of the Nevada Housing Division, for the record, you will see in this particular Section 3, you work through A, B, and then 2, A, B, and then there's 6 components underneath that particular section. And what we're trying to do here is there's not necessarily a great chain of title, if you will, on some of these properties. There's some properties that are missed, there's some heirs, what we're trying to do is ultimately to make sure that anybody who is eligible will be able to receive the benefits of what's been proposed here. So, in particular, item number 6 in that we're just revising it. It currently says any other documentation to establish inheritance of the single-family residence. We're going to change that, or proposing to change that to any other document to establish inheritance or ownership. So basically what we want to do is make sure that we capture, if title has not been preceded over the last 60 years, to be quite honest, correctly, we have the abilities to remedy that situation.
So, and I just want to make note, because I know you guys see the December 31st, 2025, and trying to make it consistent throughout. That is something that we're still it's one of the things you need to put a pin in, because I'm trying to determine who we're capturing by putting this year in this bill versus December 31st, 2023. And so it is something that is an ongoing but short conversation that we will have after this hearing. So the issue is the eligibility and who is eligible. When I put in the language under Section 3, I was looking at language around close heirs. So there is a legislative policy called close heirs. So basically it came into play in the hurricanes in Texas, it came into play the hurricanes for Katrina. It was a way to have African American families establish home ownership when politically, legally, and socially they did not have the right to record their own deeds, right? So they recorded, they were able to prove ownership in different ways, through family tree, documents that had been passed down but that had not been formally recorded, because there had been a historical issue of preventing generational wealth specifically for African American families. So I looked to the close heir language so I could find caveats in order for families to prove that they were eligible for the program and still lived in the house. And so I'll give an example. There is a current resident who will probably testify today. He grew up in Windsor Park. His father died intestate, so there was no will. He has lived in the house since he was a child. he has to prove his lineage to the property in other ways other than a will, because there is no will. He can prove that he's paid the property tax on this property since he has been an adult after the death of his parent. He can prove that he has maintained the property, lived there. So I was trying to find a way for an original resident who grew up there the ability to prove his ownership by looking at the close air language that had been historically a part of Southern legislatures, to try to place some of that language into Nevada, into the special act to deal with some of those eligibility issues for those families. So I just want to give that background, so when you read that section and you're reading all of those letters, that why am I asking for this additional evidence is because I was seeking another way for them to prove and establish their ownership, and knowing that there were other legal policies within the United States that I could look at. There was also a congressional bill put in by, her name is Nakima, who also tried to deal with this after there were several floods in Texas, because folks were not able to qualify their home ownership because they had legally been somehow impaired through racist policies from doing and recording their acts through the courts, right? So that's the backdrop for that particular section, and then we will go down to sub 3 in section 3. Basically, that black language brings in language from SB 450. We know currently that the 18.44 acres that we're currently developing right now is adjacent to. The reason why that language says in areas or near as reasonably practicable is because the families still go to church, their children still go to school in this area, and I wanted to make sure that they were still going to be a cohesive community that could stay within the social circle of where they live. That their children, because there's a magnet school in this neighborhood that has been there since the late 80s, CVT Gilbert, I wanted those children to still be able to walk to school within an area that was close to where they live. And because there are 2 churches in the area, literally one on the hill and one directly across the street from the neighborhood, I wanted them to still have live in a neighborhood that was close to the area. So that was the reasoning, the legislative intent and the reasoning behind that language. We managed to do that. Literally, the new homes are less than a mile, I would say, from the old neighborhood down the street that didn't have the subsidence problems and didn't have the issues. And so we were able to accomplish that goal. We just put that in there as like a security and a safe blanket, even though we already have the land and we're developing the land. So in sub 4, this is more of who is eligible for the exchange. So one this popped up is because we have, in this particular part, we were making sure that the correction in this area is that they were striking out this not to exceed 34 homes, even though we know that there's 93, because the language was being written for the gap, right? So I'm trying to explain this in a way. We know that there were 93 families. However, we only have enough money to build, under the prior bill, 59 homes. So the reason why this language was placed in there was to try to cover the gap. It's being deleted because it causes confusion. And that is in the conceptual amendment. So if you go on line 5, it's striking not to exceed the 34 single-family residences because it's creating confusion, because it really is 93 homes. So there's no point in talking about the gap when we're still dealing with the entirety of the project. So scrolling down, if you guys go to, the rest of the language is just a continuation of 450, but in sub 7, when we talk about for the purposes of constructing, financing, and conveying the property and who may hold title, we knew that we have a developer and he is developing this property. However, the ownership needed to be clarified around the construction, financing, and conveying of the property and who may own title, because technically the developer will own title, then transfer the property, and when that happens, the real estate transfer tax kicks in and someone has to be responsible for paying that, right? And so what we did was, first we needed to clarify ownership, which is that they're a subcontractor to the housing division and that they will be able to have ownership of that property and then be able to transfer the property to a resident. And then in going to sub 8, we still have the same December 31st, 2023. That's something that we're still going to work on after this hearing. The reason why the language exists, which is the amendment on exceeding the payoff of May 25th of 2025, is because there was a community, a Windsor Park resident meeting where I didn't want them to do anything impair their property after this date. No HELOCs, no any additional debt on the property, because we wanted to make sure that the house was still as clean as it could possibly be. Don't do anything else to this house because we have to transfer the debt over to the new house. And if you keep adding or if you go and get a HELOC, we're gonna have a problem. So that's why this date was there, that if there was anything else that happened after that date, they would be responsible for it. We know that there's some costs that may accrue with trying to transfer the property with all of the debt that's on the house. And this was just doing a cutoff for the families to say, anything past this date, you're on your own, pretty much. And then in the conceptual amendment on subsection 3, sub 9, the Housing Division, would you like to explain the change there from the may, the shall to the may in the conceptual?
Thank you, Senator Neal. Steve Acroth again for the record. If you look at section 9 there, or paragraph 9, the Housing Division shall require any transaction for the exchange of a single-family residence or vacant lot pursuant to section 8 to be closed through an escrow process. Actually, we are changing the shall to may, because we don't know that all of these will need to go through an escrow process. So that gives us a little bit of flexibility as we do the transfer of homes from the old home to the new home.
Okay, and then in sub 10, we have a revision around the liens. We're revising to make clear that the liens resulting from the sign relocation are forgivable. So this was in SB 450, but I needed to clean this up because basically I prevented the sale of the home for 5 years. So if you participate in the home exchange voluntarily, you cannot sell the home for 5 years. And I was trying to really make it clear that you have a 5-year lien on this property. The intent that I put in the record for SB 450 was that there were corporate investors going around trying to buy these houses from these families. We've all received the calls, would you like to sell your home? Or you've received a text message, would you like to sell your home? Windsor Park residents were receiving very similar calls. I wanted to make sure that if we transferred this property, number one, it couldn't flip. 2, there wouldn't be an investor who could swindle you out of the property that we worked so hard to get. So there would be a 5-year lien, which would be like a second that sits on the house. And then after 5 years, free and clear, there would be a reconveyance back to the homeowner, and then the house is free and clear. Trying to give that 5-year window to prevent the predators from coming after the property that we've worked so hard to create and provide for these families so that they can have generational wealth. That is the purpose behind this section. I was trying to be super prescriptive. We have some pieces that we need to clarify. The second that I have is forgivable, and then other liens that may be on the house that may not be a part of the statutory impairment that I am mandating that is on the property. That will have to come after this hearing. We are not in the place of an agreement on that, but we're almost there. So if you look at sub 11, which is on, it's the 20, you guys probably have been triggered, the until July 1st, 2057. When in SB 450, this is the property tax provision. So the questions that were asked when we were having all these meetings before I brought SB 450 in 2023 was, what will happen to my property tax? So this provision freezes it, it doesn't remove it, meaning that the current property tax rate that they have on the house transfers to the new home and will remain there for 30 years, and then it reverts back to it. Where did we get this language from? There was language that Senator Kekeffer did when there was a huge fire up north, and there were homes that were destroyed, and then those homes needed to be rebuilt. There was a concern to make sure that the property's current property tax before fire would be intact. So we borrowed that language from that legislation to basically freeze the property tax because why? We have 80-year-old women who cannot afford an increase. They are not going back to work. We have 70-year-old people who are not going back to work, and to have an increase in their current property tax will be a problem and probably to the detriment of being able to maintain and keep the home. So we're freezing it. When you go to sub 12, we dealt with, this is something we learned after the fact, that was a nuance that we didn't pick up, the real estate transfer tax, right, RPTT. So when the house is, when the developer builds the house and then the resident moves into the house, it triggers the real estate transfer tax. We're making sure that that real estate transfer tax is going to be waived at the Clark County assessor's level, so that that burden does not fall on to the families, nor does it fall onto the developer. But there wasn't a clear exception in law, so we have made that exception clear that that exists. In sub 14, we're dealing with the demolition. So the reason why that language in sub 14 is there is because we kept having these conversations with, in the interim, Boyd Law, they were gonna run a CLE, and we were going back and forth on some of the issues that we need to give advice around. So this is just it's a nuanced change, and it's very, very important. Although this is a voluntary program in order to exchange your property, we needed to make sure that the eligibility will now have an addendum, which means that if you agree to exchange your property, you're also agreeing for the demolition and the condemnation of this house. Why is that important? So no one else will live in those houses. The second reason is because we want to make sure on the federal IRS side that we have the legal argument to say that the government went about the business of condemning this home, which falls into the IRS exclusion for capital gains. And that's super, super important because they have a very specific provision around condemnation and how this cannot be treated as a second home that now they have to pay taxes on because it was condemned. I don't want to get too much into this. Like if I was in the finance committee, I probably would. But that was the reason why we put this language in there, and an addendum will have to occur to their eligibility, saying that you agree to this addendum that the exchange allows the demolition, which we knew was going to occur, and the condemnation to save them on the future side when they have to file their taxes with the federal government. In sub 15, this is the language that was in SB 450, and then it just expands to talk about the agreement to build a park, right? So we know that it was always my intent to memorialize these families after the 30-year fight of staying in sinking homes since 1989. I wanted to memorialize these families with a park because of all of the families that passed away, particularly Pastor Miller, who was the reason why I got into the fight over a brick wall. And then most recently, we lost the matriarch of the neighborhood, one of the matriarchs, who was 89 years old, Miss Annie Walker, who died before I could come to this legislature and remedy this. And it was extremely important to me. And this act was an act of basically taking control of parcels that were owned, 100 parcels that were owned by the city of North Las Vegas, to memorialize these families after 30 years. So this provision just allows for the construction. We're trying to create language in here that so it would allow an agreement for a developer to come in and build the park who knows how to build a park. We know that there is someone out there who knows how to do that. And they would have the ability to then acquire the parcels to then do that work of building the land, building the park out that memorializes the families. It also has some infrastructure pieces to keep like street lights, streets that may have to be repaved, sidewalks that are in good condition, and to order to build the park. I was asked this question before, and you guys probably have it on your mind, and I want to ask and answer. I want to answer it now. How is it safe to build a park when it wasn't safe to maintain a sinking home? There was a 2019 study, May 2019, that was produced by the city of North Las Vegas, where they went and researched and had a whole 50-page, I think it was 50-page report. I can share it with the committee, where they did an environmental review, a biological review, and they were going to turn the parcels into a park anyway. This spawned this whole conversation on SB 450 because the residents asked the question, first of all, why did I not know about this study? 2, it also created a dramatic effect because they had built warehouses around the Windsor Park neighborhood, and there were questions by the residents on if the land is good enough to build a 30,000 square foot warehouse, then why can't you repair my home? And when we found the park study, which no one knew about, that's when they learned that the city was intending to build a park without having a conversation with them. And we put it in the record last session so that we could establish that there was a study done, it wasn't new, and that it was going to cost them $1.1 million to build a park with those vacant parcels that were owned by the city. When I found that out in 2019, which the reason why I put the language in SB 450 is because I was like, you were already going to do the park anyway, now we're just gonna make you do it. And nor are you gonna have control over it, but I'm shifting the control over that activity to the state and then therefore a developer, because I don't want you to build another set of warehouses. I also did it because we had 5 residents who did not want to move. And I wanted to protect them from number one, the houses being condemned or somehow being pushed out because they chose to live and die in their house. That's why I put that language in SB 450. And I purposely put it in SB 450 because of the prior consistent behavior that we had been engaging with and dealing with and trying to make sure that there weren't going to be any warehouses, which the residents had fought against in 2019, which we believed that they would do. So that's the backdrop. That is a historical piece of that. It is factual, and the residents can testify to that. Now, there are conversations to try to amend and clean some of this up and tweak this out. However, we are working on an agreement for that section, but the agreement is not to remove the park. So I just want to clarify that. In your amendment, it's just minor changes of like putting in the vacant lots, because we know that there are single-family residents who own a vacant lot that they demolished their own house and they want to land swap. So there's two parts to this story. The ones who have a residential lot but there's no house and they want to swap, and then just the vacant parcels that may have been demolished, and we need to take care of the acquisition of those vacant lots. And currently SB 450 did not give that power, nor did it speak to it, although I addressed it in my legislative intent. But in my legislative intent on the record in 2023, that was not given deference, and I needed to spell it out, what I need to be in black and white language so it can actually be executed. So in section 4, these are the relocation, which there is a, so on the relocation, the housing division shall establish the relocation expenses. We knew that the families have to be moved from one place to another. The strikeout language that's in there is that when I was in 450, we thought we could use the CBDG money, which is the community block, development block grants, to do this work. We can't. That's the short end. We can't do it, so it has to be used, it has to be done in a different way. CBDG money requires an environmental review, which takes 6 months. If we were to start the 6 month process, no one would move, right? So the CBDG language was struck out because it cannot be applied to this, and it would just be regular general fund that would be applied to the relocation, not the CBDG. The other cleanup language that's in the amendment is trying to make sure to clarify, because in one of the sections, in section 4, subsection 2, it still is associating the relocation with CBDG, and that is an error. It should not be there. There is no CBDG money that will be used for relocation. That is the point and blank piece of that amendment, and that is what line 9 speaks to on your conceptual. Would you guys like to add to that one?
Steve Acroft, for the record, we've had numerous conversations with HUD, with City of North Las Vegas, with Clark County, with GOED, who actually administers CDBG within the state, in trying to determine exactly how we can best use these CDBG dollars. So I don't think it's actually accounted for in here, but there will be language that basically will state that CDBG funds, of which there will be 2.4 million available, will be used for CDBG eligible activities. So we've already crafted a document, amended a document that we've provided to Clark County for the demolition of the existing homes. So that's an eligible use of CDBG. We need to do an environmental review, as was indicated. We're going to try to start that as soon as we possibly can, so that as residents vacate their existing homes, move into their new homes, we can use that funding for the demolition of the old homes and clean up the neighborhood and reduce squatter activity and things of that nature. So that's what we have targeted for the use of the current CDBG.
And if you have questions on section 9.3 sub B, which is, and it has a spelling error, which we will correct, sub B, blue language below the red strikeout. In the 2023 hearing with SB 450, I put in the legislative record, I had loaded 50 years of legislative record, and when there was the relocation of the original residents, there were 45 residents that were moved to Cibola Park. The colloquialism for Cibola Park is Baby Windsor. So that is why you see that language there. So these 45 homes, I put in the record, when they moved into their homes within 1 year, the paint was peeling. They had built the homes where the doors were facing each other. So when you walk out of your front door is facing the other person's front door. Their paint was peeling in the house. There were city council minutes where residents had went to the city in 97, 98, and 99 saying that the tub paint was peeling in these homes. And so I included them in the remedy in 2023. The language says not to exceed the 10,000, which was in the original. What was not in the original was not to exceed, right? So we have the up to. So it was very important to make sure outside of the 93 that the 45 homes who were given given poorly constructed homes in 97, 98, and 99, this is when they were built, that we actually go back and actually try to make the remedy clean for them as well. I went back through the minutes. I tried to figure out who was the developer, why I found minutes that were under the Cibola Park, not under Windsor Park, where I found that there were conversations about repairing these houses with the city. However, it was never done. I went looking for, in 24, looking for the developer. I actually found the developer. He is still alive, who built the 45 homes, and he would just try to tell me the story about what happened, but ultimately there was never an act to complete, although there were city council meeting minutes where the city was aware that this had happened but had not been fixed. So I just wanted to clear that up and put additional information in the legislative record, because I put it in the legislative record in 23. I just do not have those city council minutes to share with you, but it is all loaded in the legislative record in 2023, where there are 50 years of wonderful documentation of what happened to these families. So that is staying in there. I think the rest of the conceptual amendment, you know, we're changing the shall to a may. We have some flexibility on line 11, and then we were clarifying the use of the language. And I kind of want to stop here, and you guys just kind of ask what you're going to ask, because I feel like I'm doing what I would do in revenue, because this has consistently been a revenue bill, and everybody that's on revenue loves taxation. So they're used to dry hearings. But let's go. I'm open for questions. Oh, can I show this video? Do we have sound fixed? Okay. I would just want to show, is this your water? Oh. Need to open the. Okay. Okay, so we're good. We shall see.
share, we paid our taxes, and we deserve to be treated better.
This room is just horrible.
Windsor
It's not-
Park,
it's not
clean up
actually
these vacant lots that the
connected.
city.
It's not actually connected. Yeah, it's that cord is not connected. Is this room, I feel like this room is jinxed. I've been in this room multiple times, and I'm almost positive that this room is jinxed.
I think during the regular session at one point, we resorted to just putting the microphone next to the laptop speaker, and it did a good enough job of projecting the sound for everybody to hear.
Well, I will try that, and maybe the universe will agree with me today. Because we are let me just, can I, yeah, I can do. I'm like, okay.
Make it look like a livable community.
I wasn't thinking about it in terms of a justice issue. I was just thinking, why do they live in this house? And it's like a dead zone.
It's a very interesting story. Windsor Park was built in the early 1960s when segregation had not ended in southern Nevada.
No one should have to live as they've lived over the past few decades, and I hope we can find a solution for them.
The residents of Windsor Park all came here for the same reasons. For a future, their future, one they could build with their own hands. Yet below all the glittering lights, revolutionary singers, and high rollers, Las Vegas was just another city in America plagued with systemic racism.
And you're talking about the 1960s? It was almost completely segregated. African Americans at the time worked in the back of the house of casinos, doing maid work, porter's work, linen rooms, that kind of work. The dirtiest jobs went to African Americans, but they were jobs.
Subpar jobs also led to subpar housing options for African Americans.
So redlining is a practice that banks and lending institutions actually draw a red line around communities in a city that they don't want to loan money into. The West Side community, and I named the community because at that time that's the only place that African Americans could actually live here in the city.
Windsor Park was one of the first all-black housing communities built on the historic west side of North Las Vegas. It was an important step in giving African Americans a place in society.
Homes are the way that you get established. It is the way you build wealth. It is the way you create community. Home ownership is the underlying stabilizing force in our country. They tell everybody to become a homeowner. That is the American way.
My name is Annie L. Walker, and I'm a resident of Windsor Park. I've been living in Windsor Park for 50 plus years.
My name is Nancy Johnson, and I'm 65 years old, and I moved here in 1976. My daughter was around 2 months old when I moved here, and I was very excited with a new home, with a new baby.
My dad was stationed at Nellis, and things were a little rough in my marriage, and so he came and got me and three of my older children, and we have been here ever since, and have multiplied since then.
Oh, the neighborhood was fantastic. It was really nice. Everybody was so friendly. We all had Easter egg hunts with all the children. They would ride up and down the street with bicycles.
Then, 20 years later, something strange happened.
It's called subsidence. The houses were built in an area where there are geological faults. So imagine the ground has cracks in it, a fault. When the groundwater is drawn out, the ground sinks, but near the faults, parts of the ground sink more than other parts. So if your house is on top or near one of those cracks, your house cracks, pipes crack, roads crack. So it became very apparent to people who lived in Windsor Park in the 1980s, and they approached the city of North Las Vegas and said, our houses are cracking, we have cracks in the road, what can you do for us?
The Department of Housing and Urban Development conducted a study and estimated that between $12 and $14 million was needed to relocate the residents. But in 1991, the money for Windsor Park was reduced from $12 million to $5 million, with officials believing that this amount, quote, would allow Windsor Park families to reestablish their living conditions to the standard that once existed in Windsor Park, unquote.
So I want to stop there because that's an important endpoint for you guys to understand, is that the council in the 90s didn't complete the work. I was a child when that was going on. I didn't get involved in this until 2019. We did everything that we possibly could to go and work with the current council. They weren't interested in working with us, which is how we got this legislation. They are now working with us. We went to Planning Commission. We were able to get our permits. We were able to get their approval to change the land from commercial to residential, which was 18.44 acres, and also get an additional lot on Cary, which has some vacant lots, which will allow us to do vacant lot swaps for lots that are owned by families in Windsor Park. And so why we're here today is because it was put in the proclamation. We are trying to finish this work. It hasn't been easy, and as you can tell from the statutes of Nevada, it's been a very complicated work that has several nuances and pieces to it, but it is very much doable and can be completed. And I am grateful that we're able to at least have this conversation to make sure that what we are seeing with these families and the life that they are living in a place that is filled with, it's desolate, although they are a community, that we will repair that and allow for generational wealth for these families and their grandchildren and great-grandchildren to have something to hold on to. And with that, we will open up for questions.
All right, thank you so much. I think we do have some questions from members of the committee. We'll start with Senator Ellison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a question. Can you hear me? Is that better? Okay, thank you. The question I've got, I remember there was a couple of that we did in the past. How many of these have we done that we put money back into that community that the legislature done, but not the cities?
Are you talking about, Senator Neal, for the record, are you talking about the historical record when I was a child?
No. I'm talking about any kind of funding that the legislature has put into this project.
So the legislature in SB 450 did 12 million general fund and 25 million from ARPA. The 12 million was paid back or was being paid back. Well, it's actually under the city of North Las Vegas had to pay back every month with their C-tax, the 12 million. So that was money that's paid back to the state. So it was a total of 37 million, 12 million general fund, 25 million ARPA, COVID money.
And out of the 90 houses, I don't know why that's sinking. Maybe you could tell me that. Is there a water, what's making these houses sink?
So I will explain. It's called subsidence. So groundwater was removed from this neighborhood for, when I pulled the water records, it was over 20 years. And because the groundwater was removed and the houses were built on fault lines, it caused the land to separate, right? And because the land separated with the homes, they started to sink down. So they went down. There's a geological study that said about 2 to 4 inches, they went down. Their walls started to crack because the foundation itself because of the sinking started to shift, right? So these were homes in 1965 that did not have, they're about 1,000 square foot, 1,200 square feet homes, and literally the wall started to crack and the wall started to separate because of the subsidence. So in the video, you saw all the cracks in the street. So literally the street itself started to crack and rise, as well as the sidewalks, where it had houses who literally, at a certain point in the city council minutes, could not even close their door, their front door, because the house had shifted so much, they couldn't even close the door. There are currently residents who they have tree roots growing through the piping, and they have lost use of the ability to flush the toilet. We had a resident who testified at IFC last October where they were using buckets, right? That is the damage that happened. It's also important, Senator Ellison, to understand that when this subsidence was occurring and the homes were sinking, in the legislative minutes that we found from 1990 and 1991, where the city of North Las Vegas testified, their home insurance was arbitrarily canceled on the existing homes. There were 245 homes in this neighborhood. There are 93 left. And their home insurance was arbitrarily canceled because the subsidence stories came out and they just canceled the houses because they weren't going to fix them.
One final call. Ken, the last question I got is in number 12. The language clarifies that the amount of 25 million appropriation available for the entirety of the project. Is that 25 million going to be able to fix these homes? Is that going to be it? Because I mean, I don't know if there's going to be any more money available or after this.
So thank you for the question, Senator Ellison. We're not fixing the houses, right? We are relocating the residents to a new parcel of land that has been purchased. It's 18.44 acres. We bought that land, and we are currently in the process of grading the land. We have gotten to the point where we are designing the streets, and we will be building new homes. We can't fix the old homes. They're not fixable.
For 90 houses.
93.
93 houses at $25 million with the infrastructure that'll have to go in there, and then plus the houses.
So
do they have to go out and get financing, some of the financing themselves? Because I don't think $25 million is going to do that.
So, Senator Ellison, the SB 450, the 25 million that it was appropriated before, that is operating right now to build 59 of the houses. The additional money that we're requesting is because we need to get up to 93, right? And the 25 million is not enough to complete all 93. So that's why this additional money is being asked for, in addition to the 45 baby Windsor homes that I put on the record. I'm using the colloquialism because it's just helpful. To do the rehabilitation for the poorly constructed homes that were built in 97, 98, and 99, right? And the park, the demolition is going to come from, there might be some other things, but fees and other contingencies. I also want you to be clear that if the 25 million, which it will fix this issue, because this is in addition to what was already allocated. If we don't use all of the additional 25 million, it will revert back to the general fund. That is clear. So this is on top of, right? If you want.
Christine Hess for the record. So yeah, I think with the housing division, I think Thank you, Senator Ellison. Great question. It's important to note that Senate Bill 450 appropriated $37 million for the construction of up to 93 homes. We have a contractual agreement with the developer. We had to pay a little more for the land than was in the original budget, which we all okayed. I myself actually authorized with many discussions with the administrator and leadership because it was such an opportunity to bring this project to completion. So since the original budget, just the increased expenses, the developer is able to build 59 homes with that $37 million. So there's still up to 34 homes because remember, this is a voluntary program. So residents are choosing to participate. And, but we need more funding to complete the construction of up to 34 homes. In SB 450, in the 23 session, there were items that weren't necessarily funded or that were not eligible uses of HUD CDBG funds, so Community Development Block Grant funds that did come to the housing, well, they're at the state currently. It's approximately $2.4 million. Right, so there's activities like the demolition of the homes after they're exchanged for the new homes. They would be unsafe, so we'll need to demolish those homes. There's the rehabilitation of Baby Windsor and other expenses. So here in line 12 in the conceptual amendment, it's just clarifying, we want to be sure to clarify that the $25 million additional is not just for the construction of up to 34 homes, but it's to complete the entirety of the original bill and what we have here in the amendment language.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Other questions? Senator Hansen.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Okay, once Windsor Park is cleared out, the problem I came across, as you guys said, there are 5 families that currently live in Windsor Park that want to remain in Windsor Park. Is that accurate?
Senator Neal, for the record. Yes and no. Yes, that's true. But as the project has been going, they're starting to have hope that it really is happening. We literally had a resident who came to Ms. Gurma, I think a couple of months ago, and he was like, well, I just didn't believe it was going to happen. And then he came in and filled out his form. We had another resident, which was Miss Annie Walker, who passed away. She was one of the people who did not want to move because she was, raised her kids and was married in that house. She signed the paper before she passed away, and her daughter, who lives in the house, who has always lived with her, is going to participate in the program, and she had legally transferred their co-tenants on the property so that she could legally participate, and they had done the eligibility. So I would say that we have 3 instead of 5.
The only reason I ask is who owns Windsor Park when the smoke all clears? Is this going to be owned by the state of Nevada? Is it going to be the city of North Las Vegas? Because you want to make it into a park, but who actually is the owner of this land once you get the last of the 5 families off, a big giant vacant lot, it sounds like it could be converted into a park? Who actually is the owner of that land?
So thank you for the question, Senator Neal. That is what we are going to clarify. I thought it was clarified in SB 450. The way I understood SB 450 was that the state had acted in a way where we took control over the property. There is now a discussion of whether or not we own it. And so the plan is, in the amendment that comes out, a cleaner amendment, is to have the temporary, under this custodial piece that exists in 450, that there will be a temporary ownership by the state to develop the park and then transfer it back to the city for maintenance. Because the reason why I did it that way in SB 450 is because they were never going to build the park. They were never going to memorialize these families. They weren't interested. And they openly said it, that they didn't want to do it. And the residents had always wanted a park. It's like, it's almost like Groundhog Day. They always wanted a park. They had told the city that. Then the city had a study saying that they could do the park. They didn't know about it. And I was like, it's like poetic justice. Well, now you're going to do the park that they always asked for. Because the residents in their current status, right? They asked for a park in like 2014, 2015, 2016. They were like, why can't you make our neighborhood look better? Why can't you just put a park here so we don't look like a battle zone? And they never would do it. And so that's the plan. The plan is we'll develop it for low trust factors through a developer and then transfer it back. Why? There is a park on the back end that's named after Annie Walker and would all be one park that could be shared by the churches and the schools. So that is an amendment that is going to come in this, after we have this hearing, to clear up the ownership piece. Unless Mr. McDonald would like to educate us on Dillon's rule and how I was able to literally go in and have some kind of custodial change to prevent the city of North Las Vegas from doing an act through SB 450.
Okay, the question is 18.44 acres is the new piece of property. How big is Windsor Park, the original 95 houses or whatever it was? How many acres?
Steve Acro, for the record, I don't have the specific acreage.
Roughly 20 acres like the other piece?
Significantly larger, because as was indicated by Senator Neal, originally it was 200 and some odd houses. So plus streets, plus infrastructure. I don't know the specific acreage, but it's probably just sort of off the top of my head, probably half a mile by half a mile by half a mile by half a mile.
And it's all going to become a park, the entire thing?
Well, so Senator Neal, for the record, so I wish I could show you a picture of this neighborhood. So it's Clayton. So Clayton and Cartier, you have a school, which is CVTB Gilbert, which is literally housed in the Windsor Park neighborhood. Then you have the homes, you have warehouses that were built, which share a boundary with some of the Windsor Park land, the original map. Then you have the church on the hill, which is Greater Faith, where it has its own piece inside of Windsor Park, which will remain. And then you have Macedonia Church, which is on Clayton and Cartier, which is like on the, I don't know, what is that? The west end. So it's not all just vacant land, because the church on the hill is squarely in the neighborhood and it's not going away, nor is it going to be destroyed. So I will find a map so you can see what's already in there, so you can understand that it's not going to be all a park when there are other pieces that are already in the neighborhood that are not going away.
Last question, and that is, will the 25 million be a closure? Basically, is the state going to be done so we don't have the legislature go into general fund to do anything further with Windsor Park down the road?
Senator Neal, for the record, thank you for the question. Yes, we have, yes, I'll just say yes. You're not going to see me in 27 unless, yeah, I won't put that in the record. Okay, all right. So you might see me in 2027 if there is some other outcome other than a signage of this.
So
okay.
25 million, and we're done with Windsor Park at the state level.
That is right.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, Senator Krasner.
Chair, thank you, Senator Neal, for your presentation. First of all, thank you very much for all the work and time and efforts that you have put in to help these people. That's very nice of you to do that. The next thing, just kind of goes along with what one of my colleagues had asked. I've heard people say, oh, if we give another 25 million, then the next session or the session after that, somebody else is going to come back, or maybe not Senator Neal, but maybe some of their heirs, or is there going to be language, or can you add language that just stops it? This is it. This is the end. That the receivers of the money and the homes have to sign off that they agree that this is the end. There will be closure on this, please. Thank you.
So, thank you for the question, Senator Neal. So, there is a reversion date in this bill, which makes it final through 2027, right? So, I believe it's 2027. We are making sure that by the time we close out 2027, the end of that year, if not, I think I put in 28 just to be safe, because time runs out, right? And so, yes, there is an end date. There's also another provision in here that's a safeguard in regards to if any of the residents were to sell the house within 5 years, like some mystical way, they would be paying us back if they sold it back, if they sold it. So we have several safeguards in this bill to make sure that there is a cutoff date and there's a final date, also giving us enough time, because I've learned a lot in this process that nothing comes easy, and the time it takes to get something on an agenda, get something reviewed, have conversations about it, that eats up time. And so we do have a final date, and I won't come back for this unless it somehow, ceases to exist.
All right, I'm going to go to Vice Chair Flores next.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Neal, for your presentation. I think all of us are looking for us to give some resolution to the families and not to have you in this position again, advocating so passionately. If I could ask our committee counsel to jump in, and just wanted to jump on the questions that our colleague Senator Hansen was asking, just so we can get just some clarification on the record, on the actual ownership, maintenance of the park, and if there's any concerns, if this could be in any way interpreted as a taking, just so we can get that abundantly clear on the record. I know my colleague wanted that to be addressed, but I figured you'd be the best to address that issue.
Thank you, Senator. This is Bradley Wilkinson, Committee Counsel. No, there is no constitutional issue relating to takings. I can't see any violation of the, I'm sorry, am I coming through there?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, okay. Any violation of the Nevada Constitution or the U.S. Constitution involved there. And certainly we could clarify the legislation as to the ownership and maintenance of the public park in the manner that Senator Neal was describing.
Thank you. And also, I asked that question at the most inappropriate time, as my colleague Senator Hansen had just walked out of the room. So I apologize. I caught myself after you started answering the question. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, no worries. I'm happy to repeat myself later.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wilkinson. Do we have other questions from members of the committee? Senator Orenshaw.
Thank you very much, Chair. And Senator Neal, I want to thank you for fighting so hard for the families there at Windsor Park. Certainly I remember the news stories that we saw in the video. And back then I thought that with the help from the federal government, that everybody may be made whole. And if it weren't for you, I think so many of the families wouldn't have a voice, wouldn't have someone fighting for them. So I guess it's more of a comment. So just thank you, Chair, for your indulgence, but thank you for bringing this bill and for fighting so hard for so many of those families.
Senator Pizzina.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you so much, Senator Neal, for this presentation. I was so happy to see this added to the special session agenda and to be able to be here and to hear your presentation. So thank you so much for the work you've done. My question comes back to the last session. I was just curious, how different is what you've given us today from Senate Bill 393 from the last session?
Senator Neal, for the record, thank you for the question. It has a little bit more detail and it has $1 million less. Like I tried to be more prescriptive, which is what this interesting, I don't know how to say it. We have what our amendment, why we have an amendment and why we are still having conversations with the Housing Division around legislative intent, because I am trying to prescribe as much as possible because I just don't want a snafu. We meet every 2 years. So there's nothing I can fix legally if we're not here. And so if I don't have the language to cover the bases, then, you know, I've already experienced where it's like, well, the language doesn't allow you to do that, right? So that is what our conversations around are, like overly prescriptive and what's broad enough to help get the job done. So basically, I just tried to cover all bases. That's the simplest way to say it.
All right. I don't see any other questions from members of the committee. Thank you all so much for your presentation. We will move now into testimony in support of SB 6. Let's get started in person in Las Vegas. If you'd like to come forward, and you can fill all 3 of the chairs in Las Vegas to give your support testimony on SB 6. We do ask that you try to limit it to about 2 minutes or less so that everybody has an opportunity to use their voice today. I see a couple folks coming forward. Whenever you are ready, you can turn on your microphone. Please give us your name and its spelling, and begin when you're ready.
Hello, Madam Chair. My name is Pamela Neal, Pamela-Neal, no relation to Dina. I've been a resident of Windsor Park since I was 2 years old. My father moved us out of the housing projects and bought that home. And so everything was going perfect. Growing up there, all that, and all of a sudden, the neighborhood starts sinking. The streets start cracking and everything. And my father tried to get a help from the city of North Las Vegas. And they gave him the runaround. So I'm glad we met Senator Neal. She's been a fighter for us. And if you guys would take the time when you're at home to look at that video that Dina presented, the 2 boys that are playing baseball are my grandsons. I don't trust them to go around to the park because it's homeless people. Not that there's anything wrong with homeless people, they have nowhere to go. But it's the trust issues. Our neighborhood looks like it's deserted. The streets are buckled up. The street lights barely work, and you can call the city of North Las Vegas over and over and over again. And they don't come repair them, even though we pay taxes. They just start trying to clean up their lots that they own, since it won't look trashy when the news comes up there like they're doing something. They have never done anything. And I'm so grateful for the bill SB 450 going into law, the Windsor Park Environmental Justice Act. I'm proud of that bill, very proud. So that means when my father moved us out of the housing projects to buy a house, his work that he worked for Acme Electric for over 45 years. So his money wouldn't go down the drain. It's like he bought some dead land that was sold to him, which was wrong, very wrong. So I have to say this bill, SB 6, will make it complete for everybody that's residing in Windsor Park, even though the neighborhood was condemned in the early 90s. The city of North Las Vegas still let people buy homes there. And I'm so upset about, really one, I'm upset about all of them, that you let the people buy those homes when you knew they were condemned. But one bothers me in particular. And he's one of our military people. He bought a home for him and his family, and it's sinking. And I guess North Las Vegas thinks that's okay, but it's not. He's one of the people that protects us. So I'm happy, SB 450, and I'm asking you to please pass SB 6. Thank you.
Good afternoon to you all. My name is Barbara Carter, and I am one of the original residents that Senator Neal has spoken of. My husband and I moved there in 1966, and I would like to give thanks to Senator Neal for her determination, for her fighting for us, and for the first time, I have hope that I will be able to leave my, excuse me, for the first time, I have hope that I will be able to leave my daughter, my granddaughter, and hopefully someday my great-grandchildren, something in remembrance of me, that I will have a home to leave them. And that's why the park, to memorialize the area of Windsor Park would be very important, because hopefully my great-grandchildren can come back to the area, see where I lived. And I, Senator Neal, have given you a history of Windsor Park, but I personally can give you a 100% history of how we ended up in Windsor Park, all to do with the I-15 being built, where my husband and I was living. The apartment complex had to be torn down because of the I-15. And I can just let you imagine in your mind how things went from there, because you had mass people have to move off the west side because of the I-15. And as was stated at the time, as a Black family, you could not move or live where you chose or wished to. So you can imagine in your mind from there why we ended up, or I ended up in Windsor Park. But I thank you, Senator Neal.
Hello, thank you all for your time. My name is Eli Valdez. I bought my house in 2019, so I got a lot of stuff going in my mind, so bear with me. My question is, why was I able to buy this house? You know, I may or may not be the vet that my neighbor over here was talking about. I serve in the Nevada National Guard. I bought my house, like I said, in 2019. I went on deployment in 2021, and I come back and there's cracks all over my walls, my ceiling. Earlier, Senator Neal was talking about unable to close the front doors. I actually had to get my front door replaced because my house is so slanted all of my doors actually, I have to lift a little to close or slam it closed because it won't close. Electricity bill is through the roof, especially during the summer because of all the cracks. There's no insulation, so all the cool air just leaves my house, which is a burden because electricity bill shouldn't be $400 or $500 a month. Senator Neal also talked about someone having to use a bucket to use the restrooms. My case isn't that necessarily that drastic, but I only have one working bathroom where I'm able to do both. And it's just frustrating. Like I haven't been living in the house as long as, like, I had an original resident right next to me. I can't even imagine the frustration that she must feel when I am frustrated beyond measure. I bought a house while I was 24. I bought the house, I was 24 years old. It's supposed to be the greatest accomplishment of my life. And months later, everything's going down the drain. This is our lives. You know, some of the senators were talking about closure. We wouldn't have to keep coming up here if we had everyone's help. We keep coming up to roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. And all the roadblocks that I've gone through, I can't even imagine what the originals must have gone through. Like Senator Neal was saying, people are starting to change their mind because they see hope. How many years of not having hope has there been? I have another neighbor behind me. Every time that there's a session, he invites everyone. Come to the neighborhood. Visit one of the houses. See how we live. I haven't had anyone knock at my door asking for a tour of the house. It's not that we're angry, but we need help. We've been asking for help. You guys are put into, I'm not specifically talking to you guys specifically, but as a whole, you guys are put in positions to help communities, help the residents of Nevada or whatever city or states you guys are in. But our community has been left abandoned for years. And Veterans Day was a couple days ago. You know, with something like this, we need something a little bit better than a free burger from Shake Shack. I'm sorry if I have offended any of you. I just got a little frustrated at the end here. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Tammy Carter. You heard from my mother, Barbara Carter, as she spoke passionately about the home her and my father purchased well over 60 years ago, with the dream that she could pass that home on to me, my daughter, her legacy. I have in front of me, and I wish you could zoom in to see a picture of me sitting on my parents' 1972 Ford T-Bird. Behind me, you can see two homes that no longer exist. Also behind me on this picture, you see there was no park. The park wasn't developed until I was well into 8, 9, maybe 10 years old. Then the park was named after Miss Annie Walker, the matriarch of the neighborhood. Please consider, vote. It was mentioned by one of the senators that, hey, if we give you the money, you're gonna leave us alone? I'm sure we're going to leave you alone. I don't think you will need to contact your lawyers to see if takeover is going to be a concern. My mother is retired, has been retired. My mother's health is at question. She cannot repair a home every week because there's always something. We can't allow that area to be turned into more warehouses because I can tell you with the building of the last set of warehouses, the home has now encountered more damage. There are cracked windows. You can't open a window, you can't close a window, nor can you get replacement windows because you need a building permit. And guess what North Las Vegas will not give you in that neighborhood? If this had been any other neighborhood but 89032, it would already been moved and it would already be a park for everyone to enjoy. Right now, I speak passionately because I'm there. I know the glory of the neighborhood prior to its sinking. I can hear the conversations in my head my parents were having to while they're fixing the neighborhood. Approve SB 6 so the residents can have a home that they can go to proudly and not have to worry about not sitting on their toilet the right way because it's sinking. Not being able to have a park where our children, our grandchildren can enjoy our neighborhood. We chose to stay in that area, not because we couldn't afford it, because we like where we live, because we used to have a bird's eye view of the entire strip. Yes, sir. Now, what we have is a bird's eye view of warehouses with smells from marijuana factories, and it's not fair. Please approve SB 6 so that the residents of Windsor Park can live like families everywhere else in Las Vegas, Nevada. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Laquana Sonye. I moved in November of 2021. I'm a single mom, and I was assisted by the city of North Las Vegas with down payment assistance, almost $15,000 to move into my home that I had no idea was sinking. As they mentioned, this issue came up in 1989. That's the year I was born. So imagine 36 years of issues for predominantly Black families that went unaddressed. And I move into a neighborhood and I'm still seeing the issues that they said were no longer existing. As a Black single mom, I was able to move in a neighborhood that the city of North Las Vegas knew I wouldn't get help with. And I'm sorry if this sounds offensive, but I'm a little confused on why the questions were, is this gonna stop? Are you guys gonna stop asking for money? Instead of, how are we gonna move forward to fix this? Why did this happen? Why did we allow predominantly Black and Hispanic families to still move in after 1997 when you guys knew it was an issue? From here forward, we just want to see results. They brought us so much hope, knowing that we can fix this issue. Because like some of the other families, I didn't think that I was going to have issues of plumbing. Not knowing that a month after moving into my new home, that the toilet wouldn't work or the toilet would back into the tub. And my kids were young. They didn't know how to explain, Mommy, the toilet's overflowing, or why is this in the tub? Like most of the families, we have one functioning bathroom. We have cracks in the wall that caused electrical issues. My first month of living there, because of the electrical issues, there was a small fire that started in the kitchen. Very small, but just so you realize how severe it is, and you think that these families have been here for over 36 years dealing with the issues that I find a huge problem. 36 years. I'm sitting here as a full-grown adult, and that's how long they've had to deal with these issues and plead for help. How much longer are you going to have to make them wait? I thank you guys for hearing us out and understanding the severity of this issue. We just wanted to be made whole. I enjoy the community I'm in. I love the neighbors that I have met and grown to love so far. My children have friends in this neighborhood. And it's a dangerous neighborhood for them to play in because of the cracks and the dips in the road. My son has fell on his scooter so many times, but he still loves being outside with his new friends that now he's growing up with. So we're excited that this will be turned into a park where they can go play and hang out with their friends of the community that they've grown up with. So I pray that you guys see the hope that you guys created and just make this whole. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Nasir Abed. I bought my house in 2018. Having a house is the American dream, but not having a house that's gonna fall on you. You never know if you're gonna sleep and the house is gonna fall. You never know if you're gonna be making dinner and the ceiling is gonna fall on you. I have a 6-year-old son. He has a skin condition called ethiosis. And last year I asked him, I said, son, what do you want for your birthday? He said, I want my skin to get better. This year I asked him, what do you want for your birthday? He said, Daddy, I hope they approve this so the house don't fall on us to kill us. All we do is we pray, we pay our taxes, we pay our mortgage. The government loves that. They love taking our money, but they don't like to fix our house. For how long do we have to live like this? We've worked hard. We got 2 jobs. Some people have 3 jobs just to pay our mortgage. But if you don't pay it, you'll get a letter in the mail and say, hey, foreclosure's coming up. Pay for it. But who wants to pay for a house that's not going to be standing? You'd be scared to live in the house. My kids, their dreams is to, they keep asking me, Daddy, when we move, can we take our address sign as a memory as this house? I said, we could do that. But what they're gonna do is they're gonna hopefully approve this bill and we could go play in the park where our house used to be at. So we're begging you, please help us. We keep asking for help, but we just keep going in circles and circles. Thank you.
Greetings. My name is Shauna Williams. I apologize in advance for being emotional. My grandmother bought a house in Windsor Park in 1967, where my aunts and uncles were raised, as well as me and my cousin. It's a family home and a family neighborhood. My aunt lived there, but her house cracked so bad she had to end up moving, and she's no longer with us. As a representative of my family, 3rd generation in, I always want my family to have a living legacy, financial security like you all do for your families and your children. My grandmother worked hard, my grandfather worked hard for the test site to acquire this home. So in 1967, they were owners of their first home coming in from the South. It's just my grandmother and grandfather's investment for her family. I'm the 3rd generation in. I take care of all the bills and responsibility of the home. About bi-monthly, I'm calling out a plumber because we can't wash in the home. The piping gets clogged up. The bathroom, we can't use one of the bathrooms because the tub doesn't drain well. So we're just asking for justice. There's been so much injustice. So we beg of you to make it right going forward. And we wouldn't be here asking for more money if things were done right. You are in the position, voted in this position to make justice right from a systemic failure prior to your time, but you're here to stand on word, stand on justice to make it right for our families and our legacy, as well as you're making it right for your family and your legacies. I want my children to recognize the hard work of their great grandmother, and I want their children and their children. And it's not just about me and my family, it's about this community. So please take into consideration and vote yes on this bill. Thank you.
Good evening. Before I give out a name, I would like to invite you senators to come to Winslow Park. Don't guess at it, don't hit at it. Come through the neighborhood. Stop in some of the houses. I'll open the door for you to come in mine. But you need to really come see what's going on. Don't take nobody else's word for it. Get your own hands on it. I mean, it's bad. You can't close the back door. Windows can't open. Your front door might not, but you have to adjust it. And if you think I'm lying, my address is 2725 Sabre Drive. I invite you to come over and get a smell of the neighborhood. And I know, looking in your face, that ain't the kind of neighborhood you live in or would like to live in. My father bought that home in '67. I was in and out until '80. And in '81, December the 13th, my father left here. He said, "Oh man, I want you to do whatever it is you have to do to hold on to this." And I'm doing all I can to do that. Even though my brother says it's going to fall down on my head, we still fighting. And we just asking y'all to fight with Senator Neal the right way, not against her, but help her to get this bill passed so we can live and let our children see all this fighting was not in vain. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Before you step away, could you give us your name and its spelling?
Webster Davis, 2725 Sabre Drive, WEBSTERDAVIS.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nancy Johnson, and I'm a resident of the Winslow Park community, and I've been there for 49 years. I can't really see you guys, but you guys can see me because I'm legally blind. And we are a tight fit community, and we've been fighting the fight for a long time. I've been there for a long time, so you know we've been fighting the fight for a long time. We just ask that you step up and help us like that people have been promising to help us. The park goes with the houses, the new houses. That's just like one thing to us. A new house, a park, it fits, it goes together. We're just asking for the money so we can move forward, get a block on the taxes, because we are all old now. We're not going back to work. We don't know if we go into the new house and raise the taxes be raised. We need some help here. We are asking you to help us. And I just want to thank you for listening to us. Like they say, come down and see how we live. Senator, my hat goes off to you. You have done a wonderful, wonderful job fighting with us, sticking by us. No matter what, you were always there for us. You have been always there for us. And we just want to thank you, thank you, thank you for being there for us. Like I asked again, you give us the money, we'll go away. And you won't have to ever worry about us coming back. But we need the money to go forward with the project. And that's all we're asking. A legacy for our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. And like I said, the park is very important to us because we'll have somewhere to go when we want to go out into the area. We won't have far to go. And the park is very important to us all. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Al Rojas. I live in Senate District 21. I'm not a resident here, but this story comes on the news regularly, and it definitely has touched my heart. I've been a homeowner. I own several homes. I'm a first-generation American. I have 4 brothers and a half-sister, and they all own homes, and we know the importance that owning a home is part of the American dream. And, these people deserve something to hold on to that dream, to keep going, whatever equity they built in their homes. And, one of the things is over in North Las Vegas, 25% of the homes for rent are owned by hedge funds. I was shocked to hear about that. And, I'm part of a neighborhood watch program, and we're trying to get these people homes. We've seen these people in encampments, and we don't want to see a person who is invested in the American dream ending up on the street or renting, or all their equity going to some of these, predatory rental companies or whatever, what's going on in North Las Vegas. So anyways, we want to do something for these people. Let's get this bill going. Let's get them a home. Let's keep them, whatever equity they built, let's make sure they don't lose that, and let's keep them on their dream. Thank you very much. Bye.
Good evening, Chair Scheibel and members of the committee. My name is Jackie Spicer, and I am the Coalition Coordinator with the Nevada Environmental Justice Coalition. I'll be brief, but I wanted to first thank Senator Neal for her steadfast leadership on this issue, and also to the legislators here for consistently taking action on this issue over the last 2 legislative sessions, even though it failed to make it past sine die this year. And thank you for standing by these families who have waited more than 50 years for any kind of justice while their houses continue to sink, crack, and break at no fault of their own. This story will always remain in Nevada's history as one of our greatest environmental injustices. It is impossible to go back and undo the years and decades of harm that were done to these families, but it is not too late for this story to have a positive ending. Giving homes to these families is one way to do that, and the significance of creating a park from the old neighborhood, not only as an important memorial for those who could not see this chapter end, but also for creating a green space in an urban heat island neighborhood that provides a respite from extreme temperatures, can provide clean air, and a safe space for families to enjoy. That is what environmental justice means. Asking you to please pass this bill and close this chapter on a page that brings hope to the community and dignity to our state. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Danita Lanier Gant.
I've been at 2104 West Cartier, North Las Vegas, Nevada, since I was 2 months old. I am now 60. We've had this home and our family. If you heard Annie Walker talk at the beginning about her dad coming down, that was my dad. Came down and retired from Nellis Air Force Base. And as segregation goes, you go where you're wanted, you go where you're allowed to live in peace. The neighborhood I grew up in, the homes were nice to the point of the sinking, but we were a neighborhood. You knew your neighbors. You don't get that right now. Right now, I'm surrounded by plots of dirt for the homes that have been torn down. The commonality of the one bathroom working goes along with my story also. My son, who's a disabled son, takes a bath in a container, elongated container in the tub, because we can't fill the tub up. It drains too slow from the roots that are perpetrating through the piping. I got into construction so that some of these issues I could work on myself, but my health is failing, and I wanted to leave this home, not this home, but the new home for my daughter. And if you would agree to the SB 6, as Senator Neal has presented it to you, it would be more than greatly appreciated. Senator Neal, I want to thank you for taking the lead and pushing forward with all of this when everything seemed hopeless at the beginning. So we hope that this bill will get passed. And as we were asked, would we come back? No, we won't come back, because we'll have a home that we can use both bathrooms in. We'll have a yard we can barbecue in. We'll have a front yard where we can let our grandchildren play without cause and harm coming to them. So thank you for listening, and I wish you would please pass this bill.
Thank you. And if we could also get your name again, please.
Danita, Danita, Lanier, Lanier - Gant, Gant.
Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Michael Richardson. I reside at 2015 West Evans Avenue, that's in the Winslow Park area. My mom, dad bought our home in 1968, and we've been there ever since. Just like to urge the committee to pass this bill for us. And like everybody else said, I feel like we deserve better. In my case, our house got so bad that we literally had to cut a big hole in the floor, go up under the house, and jack the house back up and put blocks up under it to keep it from sagging in the middle. And I'm not alone. I know of a few people that had to do that because the house literally was caving in the middle, and they had to jack the house up so it won't be just falling down. So, I don't think when we bought houses over here, it was a beautiful neighborhood, like Nancy was saying. We, had family outings, had egg hunts and stuff like that. And, we just don't deserve, to be treated like this, and thank God for Senator Neal. She's a godsend. We had other people come, we gonna do this and do that, but, do nothing, and in Senator Neal's case, just for helping us, she had to go get a lawyer because they come after her for helping us. We don't deserve this. you know. So I just urge you to pass this bill, SB 6. And like I say, you won't have to worry about us no more, you know, because like I say, you know, we've been fighting this fight for 60 years, and I say, you know, and I like to say this, even though our houses are sinking, we are tight knit community, and we love each other, and we've been in this fight all, you know, for a long time together, and it just brings us closer together, and we would like everybody to get a new home, not just like the 59 people we would like this funding, so all 93 houses can be built and everybody can move and live out the spirit of home ownership and don't have to worry about this no more. Thank you for your time. Like I say, my name is Michael Richardson. That's Michael Richardson, Richardson. Thank you very much.
Hello, members of the committee. My name is Leslie Vega, Leslievega, and I'm a policy fellow with the Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada, and it's always a privilege to testify before you. First, I'd like to say that when I arrived about 1:30-ish, the neighbors were already filling this room, and there's two gentlemen that are choosing not to give testimony but have asked me to share their names with you and to ask that you support this bill. And that's Edward McCall, who moved into the neighborhood in 1966, and Richard Black, who also moved into the neighborhood in 1966. They're here and they ask that you support SB 6. This bill will protect families who believed they were doing the right thing by investing in home ownership in North Las Vegas. As you know, home ownership is meant to be that stepping stone to secure a future, a foundation for stability, dignity, and for generational wealth. These families paid the price for decisions that they did not make. In pursuing the American dream, Windsor Park families were robbed of time, decades, financial security, and peace of mind. SB 6 is not just a housing investment, it's an environmental justice correction. It ensures that the state completes what it started decades ago and that these residents are not abandoned halfway through a relocation process they never asked for, but were forced into. By voting yes on this bill, you will reinforce trust, you will repair historic harm, and finally give all of these families, their children, their grandchildren, the chance to rebuild the generational wealth that they are being denied. Without this funding extension, Windsor Park residents will remain blocked from the future, and that's a price that Nevada should not allow them to pay again. Thank you.
All right, it looks like we have no further testimony in Las Vegas. I do want to thank everybody for coming to participate, and I know that you have been waiting a very long time, both in terms of justice for your families, but also today, and waiting to testify in this committee. And so we appreciate you bearing with us as we worked out our schedule in this special session. And it's always our privilege to hear from members of the community. With that, we will move to support testimony in person here in Carson City. Anybody wishing to give support testimony in Carson City is invited forward to do so now.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Tara Webster, Tarawebster. I am the Policy Manager with the Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada. Rebuilding Windsor Park and rehoming residents is fundamentally a matter of housing equity and environmental justice. For many residents who bought their homes in this neighborhood, Homeownership offered the promise of generational wealth and the opportunity for them to cultivate a vibrant and thriving community. And for those who have called Windsor Park their home, for decades have waited far too long to live in homes that offer security and safety. And so we strongly urge you as a committee to support SB 6 and to fulfill this long overdue promise to those community members.
Good afternoon. My name is Aisha Goins, AESHAGOINS, with Black Joy Strategies. I'm testifying on behalf of NAACP Las Vegas and also SCIU. We heard stories from young people, mature people, that I would consider family. We heard about something I had never even considered, that someone moved right after the I-15, and I had to look that up. But the I-15 was constructed and began construction in 1957. So that means that she was the first to move into, they call Windsor, we call Winslow Park. It's just really disheartening, story after story. It choked me up, but also because I also am from that area. And, I was in foster care and I was raised there. And even knowing that the community wasn't at its best, we still made it feel like it was great. And the family was just family. And no matter where you went, someone was feeding you and treating you like your family. It never occurred to me that these people were part of a fiber and they were paying a mortgage to be Americans in homes they couldn't keep. They couldn't leave. And we say these things, justice and equity and all of those things sound great in words, but when you're looking at those persons and you're hearing their story, it's different. It's not equity, it's a person. It's not justice, it's a person. We support SB 6 in memory of those who fought for over 30 years, but didn't live to see their justice. Windsor Park families have held their property down before it literally let them down. Senator Dena Neal never stopped fighting, even when others looked away. Now the families are getting the money and the support to finish this plan. This isn't what history repair should look like, especially after 3 decades. But it's where we are. The family deserves homes that don't move unless they want to. This isn't justice. And let's be clear, this is not justice. This is just creating a foundation that will hold up the families that are still Windsor families, because this isn't the 300 Windsor families. This is just 43 families. The NAACP and SEIU urge your support for SB 6, for those that are still here, and also for those who have went on to glory. Thank you.
Reverend Paul Larson, Lutheran Engagement Advocacy in Nevada, Advocacy Director. On behalf of Lutherans across Nevada, for years, residents have been fighting, and LEAN supports SB 6. Please support this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see anybody else coming forward to give in-person support testimony in either Las Vegas or Carson City, so we'll go to the phones for support on SB 6.
To testify in support on SB 6, please press *9 on your phone to take your place in the queue.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Gerald Mays. I'm the Executive Director of the NAACP Las Vegas Branch 1111, and we are testifying in strong support of SB 6. This bill provides long overdue justice and relocation support for Windsor Park families. many of which are directly tied to our branch as members or the family members of our branch membership. This bill is extremely important to the NAACP because it preserves the history of this community, and with the recent attacks on our history across the country, creating a memorial park will ensure their stories of suffering will not be forgotten. The park, in conjunction with the relocation efforts, is simply the right thing to do for the community members, and the NAACP will always support the right thing to do in regards to our communities. We urge you to support SB 6. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, members of the Senate Committee on Public Safety and Security. This is Olivia Tanager, for the record, Executive Director of the Sierra Club Toyabe chapter, and a proud card-carrying member of the Senator Gina Neal fan club, here to support SB 6, the Windsor Park Environmental Justice Act. Thank you, Senator Scheibel, and to the Senate side for allowing us to be present in 2025 and allowing phone-in testimony as well. And thank you to Senate leadership for helping ensure this issue, a real emergency, was on the agenda for this special session. We appreciate everybody's time in hearing and considering this bill again after it inadvertently died back in June. My organization is the largest grassroots environmental organization in the state, and I do want to put on the record that my organization will always stand with the residents of Windsor or Winslow Park and who have been subjected to decades of environmental injustice. When we talk about Windsor Park, we talk about resilience. As was demonstrated today, we talk about a community that held tight to its roots even as the ground beneath their homes shifted. We talk about people who believed in each other when the system failed them time and time again. So we will continue advocating for, as Senator Neal discussed earlier, the memorial park instead of warehouses in the neighborhood. Warehouses are an environmental blight oftentimes. They are disproportionately located close to low-income communities or communities of color. Warehouses are detrimental to air quality, leading to higher particulate matter, ozone pollution, and therefore increased health issues like asthma or cardiovascular health issues. They also increase the urban heat island effect, meaning they raise temperatures of nearby communities. They use a lot of energy. They can be very water intensive. So all that to say, we support this bill. We support the residents. We support having a park over having warehouses. Thank you.
Caller with the last three digits, 605, please press star 6 to unmute yourself. Caller, you are unmuted and you may begin.
Yes, my name is Ida Gaines, a longtime member of the Las Vegas community and the Las Vegas branch of the NAACP. I would like to first thank Senator Neal for her longtime commitment and dedication to this project of seeing that some economic justice is done for the members of Winslow Park. And I too voice my support for SB 6. Thank you.
Caller with the last three digits, 385, you are unmuted and you may begin. Once again, caller with the last three digits, 385, you are unmuted and you may begin. Chair, it looks like that caller is having some difficulty with connecting. Would you like to move forward?
If we have other callers on the line, sure, let's go ahead and we'll come back to this one.
Thank you, Chair. If you'd like to testify in support on SB 6, please press star 9 on your phone to take your place in the queue.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Quentin Savoy. That's Quentin, S is in Sam, A is in Apple, V is in Victor, WOIR, the president of the Las Vegas branch of the NAACP. I want to echo the sentiments of our first vice president, just like the consulting, our executive director, and our longtime member, Nevada Gang. This is an opportunity for the Nevada Legislature to prove that government can work for communities and help restore some of the breach trust that we are seeing between our institutions and our communities. Please support SB6 so that we can restore trust and restore civic trust and make right this very, very long thing. These stories have been compelling, and of course, we are for SB6. Thank you.
I'm so sorry, sir. We're unable to make out what you're saying. If you'd like to call back in with a clearer connection, we'd be happy to take your testimony. Or if you'd like to submit it in writing to the committee email address, we would be happy to include it in the record. That address is SCPS, as in Senate Committee on Public Safety, at sen.state.nv.us. Do we have any other callers on the line for support testimony, BPS?
Chair, there are no more callers in support at this time.
There, you're in.
Okay, sounds like no more callers in support. So we will move to opposition testimony. If there's anybody wishing to give in-person opposition testimony, now is the time to come forward in Carson City or Las Vegas. I don't see anybody moving towards the speakers' tables, so we will go back to the phones for any opposition testimony on SB6.
Testify in opposition on SB6, please press raise hand in the Zoom window or *9 on your phone to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in opposition at this time.
All right, before we move to neutral, I understand we do have one more person in support testimony who has joined us by Zoom. Mr. Hawkins, if you would like to go ahead.
Well, good afternoon, good evening. I appreciate it. Sorry, I've been trying to get in, but your great staff helped me make sure it happened. I'd just like to add my support for the project and thank Dina and Steve and Christina and the governor who told me personally that he was supporting the project. All of the residents who fought through these 40, 50 plus years. We are, as a developer, committed to making the project happen, to finishing the development, building the 93 homes before December of 26, to make sure everybody has a new start, a new opportunity, well-deserved. I personally want to thank the legislature and everyone who supported the project, and even those who didn't. But Community Development Program Center Nevada is committed to making the project happen. I want to say one more thing. Steve Haycroft said once to the legislature, if there's one person that can get this done, I believe Frank Hawkins will get it done. And I know Dina has believed all along, and I just want you all to know that we're going to get it done. And thank you for giving us the opportunity to help the residents.
Thank you so much. With that, we will move on to our neutral testimony. If there's anybody wishing to testify in neutral here in person in Carson City or in Las Vegas, please come forward now and go ahead. We'll start in Las Vegas. Sorry, we'll start in Carson City. Go ahead when you're ready. There's a button on the table. It looks like a sticker.
Got it.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Charlie Donahue. Donahue is spelled D-O-N-O-H-U-E. I serve as the administrator for the Division of State Lands. In that capacity, I also serve as a state land registrar. With me here today is the Deputy Administrator, Ellery Stoller, if I missed some of my comments. We are here in the neutral position. I would like to express some concern in some of the general, what I classify as a little bit vague language of the bill. It starts on, it's section 3, my apologies, section 3, 2B, line 5 and 6. But what I'm really concerned about, the language is very similar, is section 15, where it talks about the governmental agency, nonprofit corporation, or other entity selected by the Housing Division. Senator Neal's testimony talked about the state owning a park. That would affect the Division of State Lands. There's testimony regarding extensive transfers. I believe state lands would be dragged into that or brought into that as well. I just found out about this bill this morning while I was stacking wood and decided to come down to share my thoughts with you. The Division of State Lands is at and beyond our capacity with the objectives of this administration. Your beautiful new buildings down in Las Vegas were actually secured by the Division of State Lands and then quitclaimed to the legislature. We do an awful lot on behalf of other agencies, but I will tell you right now, if we get brought into significant transfers or dealing with developing a park or just dealing with the associated planning activities that are required to consolidate APNs, Administrator Acroft's testimony indicated that Windsor Park was about a half a mile by a half a mile by half a mile. That's half of a section. That's 320 acres. So it will be a nice park if that's actually generally what the size of the Windsor area is. But it will result in a heck of a lot of work for the Division of State Lands. So my request is that that language that is rather vague get drilled down and an entity identified. And if it happens to be the Division of State Lands, I am going to have to put a fiscal note on it. Those conclude my remarks. I would be happy to take any comments or questions if you have any, madam.
Do the members of the committee have any questions? Okay, go ahead, Senator Ellison.
Thank you. If you had to take over that area and that does become a park, who maintains that park?
Thank you for the question. I hope you can hear me. My name is Ellery Stoller, Deputy Administrator, State Lands. And the way that we read the legislation is that the park would ultimately be turned over to the City of North Las Vegas for maintenance. I hope we read that correctly. So I think we heard from Senator Neal's testimony earlier that the ownership of the park would be temporarily in the state's ownership until such transfer could be occurred.
Thank you.
And unless there are other questions, I just have two clarifying questions. The first one is that if the State Lands Division is tasked under this bill with establishing the park and turning the maintenance over to the City of North Las Vegas, you would do that, right?
Yes, we would do that.
Okay, and my second question is, I just want to ensure that I understand accurately that you guys are, let me ask, have you been engaged in this process in creating the language that we're looking at today?
Charlie Donahue, Administrator, Division of State Lands. We have not been involved in the language, and the conceptual language of amendments that I saw this morning before I left home is different than what was presented this evening.
Okay, but I trust that you are willing to work with the sponsors and stakeholders as well as LCB Legal to craft language that's acceptable to everybody. Is that a fair assessment? I see you shaking your head.
Charlie Donahue, Administrator for State Lands. Yes, we would work with the bill drafter to hopefully define language that we could find acceptable. The other thing is I know that the Housing Division
It's my recollection that in their statutes, they have the ability to secure real property. It may just be for affordable housing, I could be wrong. But one element or modification to this bill may be giving that division the authority specifically for this project to do the real property transactions.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And it looks like Vice Chair Flores has a question.
Hi, thank you for coming up. Just like you heard all the folk testify, this has been an ongoing conversation for, unfortunately, a very long time for the folk who have been living there, and it's been happening in this building for a very long time too. I'm just trying to understand why we're getting involved today in a special session when we've had this conversation ongoing for so long.
Thank you for the question, Senator. Charlie Donahue, Administrator for the Division of State Lands. I found out about the Windsor Park project at the Reno Airport one time when I ran into Administrator Acroft. And I asked him, I was like, with that and affordable housing, what, where in your statutes are you able to secure and address real property issues? He and I never followed up on that, but I wasn't aware of this bill in session. It was not brought to my attention, and my comments are specifically addressed to what I believe is new language.
Understood, and thank you for that. I was just curious because, again, so many folk have been engaged in this conversation for such a long time. So unfortunately, it just sounds like you were not brought into that previously, but I know that this is not, the conversation about the park is not new. We've been having that conversation prior to this special session, but it makes sense. There's so many moving parts that at times it doesn't get to everybody when necessary.
Charlie Donahue, Administrator for the Division of State Lands. Senator, I really appreciate those comments. I would like anytime there's any activity or legislation that has anything to do with real property, that they consult with the state land registrar, and unfortunately that doesn't happen on a regular basis.
And again, I understand that happens, so thank you for being here, and I'm sure we'll be able to work on something collectively.
All right, thank you so much. I don't see anybody else coming forward to give neutral testimony here in Carson City or down in Las Vegas, so we'll go to the phones, please, for any neutral testimony.
Chair, there are no callers in neutral at this time.
All right, I know it has been a long evening, so I just want to make sure we don't have any other callers on the line who may have missed their opportunity to give their testimony in another position.
Here we have no more callers.
All right, then it looks like we have received testimony from everybody. I will invite the bill sponsor back to give some closing remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Dina Neal for the record. Number one, I want to thank the residents for sitting and waiting and giving your testimony. I honor you. I honor your time. I have a deep, abiding love for you. You know this. We are going to continue to deal with every boomerang that comes our way. So do not be discouraged based on what you just heard in neutral testimony. I will deal with it and I will manage it. So thank you. Thank you to everyone else that came in as allies. I just want to be real clear. I've been a legislator for 15 years now in this body. I knew we were going to have a conversation with state lands because they kept throwing it up. I have not heard from legal division that this involves state lands because the park has been in SB 450. It was also in SB 393, which had a full hearing and was moved in both houses. I am very clear when someone throws a rock and I get hit with it, but I also throw rocks back. I am not interested in having folks come to the table when this was supposed to have been an offline conversation to even determine the relevancy of the argument that was being presented. So I don't like curveballs, and I never have, because I'm a straight shooter. So I'm going to say this. I want to thank this committee for having this hearing. We will work on an amendment. I will talk to legal. I will not be cornered. I will get this park. And saying that I did not come to the state lands about this language, I didn't know I had to, because legal defined and clarified that, number one, it could happen. I feel that there is reluctance that is being put on the record to force me into doing something for the short period of time that we are in the special. And I consider that disingenuous to pull that card when it was something that was supposed to have been discussed and has never been discussed with me. It was going to be a conversation, but now it just became a public conversation. That's why I'm dealing with it publicly. I guess this is one of these sessions where I'm just not in the mood for somebody to play games with me on something that I have committed my life to since 2019. Nor am I interested in someone who is carrying the water for a city of North Las Vegas who wants the land back. And yes, I'm calling you out. And if you come for me on this call out, I'm going to come for you. Thank you for having a hearing on this bill.
Thank you for your presentation and your comments. We will now close the hearing on SB 6. At this time, the committee is going to go into recess. In the spirit of transparency, I'm not sure if our next meeting we'll pick up back in the committee room or behind the bar, but we will try to keep you all informed the best that we can. Again, we appreciate everybody's time this afternoon and this evening, and for now we are in recess. Okay. I am already calling the Public Safety and Security Committee back to order because one of my shrewd members recognized that I neglected to do public comment. And it's never my intention to shut the public out of these meetings. It's important to us that we hear from you, so I will now open the floor for anybody wishing to give public comment, which is anything that relates to the purview of the Public Safety and Security Committee, but outside of the issues discussed in the bill hearing. Anybody wishing to give public comment in person is invited forward here in Carson City or Las Vegas. I don't see anybody coming forward, so we'll go to the phones, please, for public comment.
Chair, the public line is open and working. However, there are no callers at this time.
All right, then, we will go back to our previously aforementioned recess.